Good to meet you. I've
Self-fulfilling
got some
prophecy.
I got some wonderful swear words ready to go here.
Yes.
I don't believe you.
See?
Oh, fuck off, Ted. Fuck off.
Challenge accepted.
Wait. Let's hear it. Say it again.
No. Hold on. Fuck around and find out.
That's right. Right there. See, Sylvia, this has to be our tagline because you've made our podcast explicit, so we might as well just run with it.
The Hollow Buddy. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I am Kristen Zeman, and I am here with my effervescent and feisty co-host today, Feisty, and I have a feeling you're going to live up to that, Sylvia Moyer. We are both former police chiefs, but the Hollow Bunny podcast is not just for cops. It's for anyone interested in talking about life and leadership, particularly the lessons that we have learned about both. And these lessons fill up the metaphorical Hollow Bunny. So as you know, we've got thousands of new listeners to add to our 1 million listeners. So why don't you remind or enlighten our new listeners on how this Hollow Bunny podcast was hatched? See what I did there?
Kristen, let's do this. Well, first of all, we kicked off some global superstars to have our guest today. So Hollow Bunny podcast listeners, you're going to remember, and maybe some new folks, you're going to be enlightened too. The fact that really it was Kristen and I sitting around saying, how did that person get a position of prominence over and over? Like really nice package, they look cool, but when you snap off an ear of this Hollow Bunny, or in Kristen's case, you bite the butt of the Hollow Bunny, you think this really nice package is going to be full of all kinds of substance. It's going to satiate you, or inspire you, lead you in a fantastic way, but no. We've all worked around some folks that are a little hollow. They look cool, but maybe hollow. So We're trash talking. And what do we do with that kind of trash talk? We weaponize it. We bring it to the masses. We start filling, right?
Well, we decided, gosh, there's just not enough podcasts in the world.
So that is true.
So we should launch a podcast. Well, it was actually you, though. Yeah, I give you credit because we were trash talking, and then I'm like, Mom, Matt, that guy, he's got no substance whatsoever, but he's got the title. And you said, yeah, he's a Hollow Bunny, and I was like, mind blown. So, listeners, that's how the Hollow Bunny podcast came to be. So many people want to know why we call it that. That's why.
Yep. Yeah, and it's enticing. You want to know more. And really, we do good. We don't do evil. So no evil. We turn something kind of seedy into something just benevolent, altruistic, and just overall amazing. Right, Kristen?
That's right. And so the platform here is that we invite people on that we believe are solid bunnies. So are you ready to hear who I have on the podcast today?
Well, I know who you kicked off this podcast to get our guests, Kristen.
I know. I still want them to come on. So don't. I mean, don't. Because we still want them to come on. So they're like B team. They're B team now. Yeah.
B team. So let's introduce our A team superstar.
So our guest today is the CEO of Amplify Publishing Group. It's Naren Aryal. And this guy is not only a publisher, but he's my book publisher. So that makes him super special.
And he has good taste.
He does, and he's extremely handsome. Listeners, if you're not watching, he's so handsome. So Naren advises industry experts and thought leaders on the opportunities and challenges in the ever-evolving publishing world. He launched the company with a single title in 2003 and guided it to what it is today, one of the fastest growing and most respected hybrid publishing companies in the world. Naren, welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast.
Thank you. It is great to be here. And by the way, we became one of the most respected only after your book came out.
Of course.
I know. Listen, I wasn't going to put you on the spot because it's like saying, hey, that's my, who's your favorite kid? But I know in my quiet moments that I am your favorite author. and certainly not the neediest. So listen, we know that. Let's just cut through all of that. Everyone knows that. And let's just move on to the nuts and bolts. So Naren,
We're talking about numbers 2 through 400 now. One has already been established. Let's go.
Okay, perfect. So Naren, your
Freaking
background
like this guy already.
Isn't I know. I want to keep him for myself, but also share him with the world. It's this weird juxtaposition, it's like I found something good. I want to share it, but also I just want to hoard him. So
Okay.
Naren, you're a former lawyer. We're not going to hold that against you at all, but I know that you have talked about your start story so many times, but how does a lawyer go from practicing law to becoming a book publisher? Fill in the blanks for us.
Happy to. So it was back in 2003. I was a lawyer for venture funded technology companies. Boring, right? Very boring. And I was between gigs, and my daughter, who was 3 at the time, wanted a children's book starring my university's mascot. Now, I went to this school called Virginia Tech, and our mascot is this hokey bird, which is actually a turkey. So we published a book called Hello Hokey Bird, getting a license from the university. And it was a simple book. The mascot goes around campus, stops at 4 or 5 landmarks that all alumni know, and then heads to the game where, of course, the hokey bird, the mascot, cheers the team to victory. And my daughter loved it on the way home from a game. And we said, hey, why not get this simple little story done up and see if others like it? And what we found is there was a real market opportunity at the intersection of children's literature and licensed sports products. So we took that simple, very simple, I'm not that smart, so I'll say simple one more time, concept, and did the same thing for 300 universities. And then we got a license with Major League Baseball, the NFL teams, and that is 1.0 of our business. And that's how I got started in this crazy world of books.
That's remarkable. And so you basically, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm not, but did you feel like that there was a gap in the publishing industry? It's like because you're an author, you come into this as an author, which I think is a great way, to build this foundation of being, on the front end or on the other side of it. And so then did you recognize that there was just a lot of gaps as often do when we see something that we could do better? Is that what, and I'm not trying to put thoughts in your head, but is that what you were thinking, or was it just something that you wanted to try?
Yeah. So initially, I just wanted to do something really nice for my daughter, right? And then what I came to find out is after selling 5,000 books in 6 months, which is a big number, that there was a real market opportunity. And yes, there was a gap in the marketplace for children's literature that spoke to families, specifically families, parents, grandparents that wanted to share their love for their favorite team, whether it's Virginia Tech or the Boston Red Sox or the Dallas Cowboys or the Chicago Bears. I know you're probably a Bears fan, Kristen. So there was a market gap, and we just happened to come along, right time, right place, and a lot of hard work, and fill the gap.
That is cool. So it came out of this loving thing you wanted to do as a dad.
That's it.
That's rad.
That's
and
it.
What's so interesting is you capitalized. Okay, see that dude right there? His name is Fenway.
Yeah.
Yeah, go Red Sox. You capitalize on this super interesting thing. And that is fanaticism. It is, or is it pride? It's like what people are passionate about, what they want to root for. And you did it from a freaking turkey.
Freaking turkey, man.
So that you did mention something that I want to grab out of there, because when you just said you sold, would you say 5,000 copies? Naren, here's where people really are misguided about the publishing world, right? Because the research that I did when I published my book, and I don't know if it's the same, I tried to find some more current numbers, but let's just grab a nonfiction book such as biographies, memoirs, any kind of nonfiction book. The average sell, unless you're someone who's famous, that is already famous and publishing a book, but the average author only sells like 250 books, and I found that according to letterreview.com.
What? I'm sorry. For all people that are on their treadmill, the average author sells 250.
Can you confirm that, Naren?
I don't know where you got that number, but I can confirm it's low, and it's lower than most of your listeners think. And so what you have to think about is like on one end, there's these super duper best-selling authors that sell millions of copies, right? And then on the other hand, there's a lot of folks that write something that is targeted for friends and family, and so of course they're just going to sell a couple hundred, right? But there's a wide range in between. But I will tell you, it is hard work to sell 5,000 books. I don't care what
Wow.
title, it's hard work. And so that's something that the average reader, consumer, wannabe author just needs to understand.
That's
Yeah,
rad. And
no, I was just going to say is a lot of people think that, if I publish a book, and they also think the other misnomer is that I'm going to make tons of money, and that's not the case either, but still jump in here for, what, at least does that surprise you, Sylvia, that people aren't making as a published author, you're not making a lot of money unless you are selling, maybe 15,000 books or more.
Right. And I'm wondering, because Naren, what you're really amplifying for folks is do something you're passionate about. Write about something you're passionate about. And then, it will go from there, right? You're not getting, most people aren't getting into the biz of writing a book to make a shit ton of cash. They're doing it to send a message, to amplify for somebody something, to increase a skill. I don't know. It's an array of things, right?
Yeah, so ROI is an interesting topic when it comes to books. And so ROI takes many forms, right? ROI is just satisfaction. ROI is impacting lives. ROI is book sales. ROI is getting on more stages if you're a keynote speaker. ROI is increasing your speaking fee. ROI could be getting more clients as a consultant.
Sure.
ROI could be getting more media hits, right? And so when you think about publishing, you really have to have an open mind and really be honest with yourself what ROI looks like. And I often ask authors to visualize what success looks like 1 year out from the publishing, from the time you publish your book. And I can tell you this, everyone that we've ever worked with, without fail, will say that, gosh, having this book opened up doors for me that I could have never imagined. And, on the front end, you don't know exactly what those doors are, but I can tell you, having done this a long time, that there are doors. And particularly if you create a great book, that will open up opportunities for you. And we have to look no further than Kristen and all that she's done post book launch and post book release to really put that into meaningful terms.
Yeah. And going into it, though, I mean, for context, that was not something that I had planned on doing. I was, doing talks prior to, but they were just, really, for the police department. And so a book, what it does, and what surprised me about the book is that it transcended law enforcement. So even though I've, had a 30-year career, is that then the speaking engagements came. And so, the book sales that I had, so in the first 3 months, I sold 3,000 copies, which made me want to absolutely faint. So, Naren said, we got to print another 3,000. And so that's where I am right now. I'm teetering there. So that to me was success, just because I only thought my mom would read it. So I was really happy about that, but then it has opened doors. And so I'm really glad that you said that, because it just depends on what you want it for. Do you want it as a family heirloom? Do you want it as something that, you're going to try to sell, and then there's the marketing side of it too, Naren. I mean, talk about that and what an author, has to do, and how most likely, it's even a greater benefit to have some following before you even write a book.
Yeah, that's right. So 2 things on marketing. Number 1, know your target market. And you have to ask the hard questions because no, not everyone's going to want to read your book. And if you think that you're just not asking the hard questions or accepting the truth. So really dig down and understand who's going to want to read that book. And then you might want to do that while you're writing the book, because that might influence some of the editorial decisions you make as well. So that target market understanding is critical. And also what I would say is act like you have a book to sell before you have a book to sell. And what that means is ramp up your author engagement, your platform and your cultivation of audience well in advance. So, start releasing blogs, start doing a podcast, start, writing articles, op-eds, ramp up your social media, all that in advance of a book launch. Make sure that people who might be interested in buying your book really understand who you are, what the topics are that you're passionate about, what your positions are, because when that book comes, you're going to make the ultimate ask for them to invest one more time in you and your thoughts in the form of a book. And it'll be much more authentic and effective if they've heard from you before you hit them up for a book buy.
Right. And here's what's I have about 74 questions, but I'll just ask a couple right here because this is so interesting. There is a piece, I read this, Ernest Hemingway once said, the most essential gift for a good writer is a built-in shock-proof shit detector. And what I wonder is, as a publisher, as someone who's examining someone's body of work, something that they've poured their heart and soul into, like Kristen did. I mean, we know Reimaging Blue's your top seller.
It's my favorite for sure.
It's your fave.
Oh my God,
right?
I knew I'd get you to say
but
that.
how do you then work with an author? And I'm super interested in, how do you disagree without being disagreeable? How do you take someone's pride and joy and say, yeah, this part is shit. It's not going to work.
Can I translate? Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm so fascinated. I'm fascinated because we've gone through, all of us have submitted, my thesis at Homeland Secure at Naval Postgraduate School was like 158 pages. And by the time it was done, it was like 70. I thought, oh dear God. I mean, talk to us how you do that.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna use an example. So I worked with one author who wrote a really fabulous memoir. This author was from a suburb of Chicago, and she happened to be a police chief. And so Kristen and I, we went back and forth in my team, and we asked her some of the hard questions, and we challenged her to include some topics that might be a little controversial. And during the process, we had these conversations, many conversations, Kristen, you'll remember. And we said, hey, what about talking about this issue or that issue? And it was a process that went back and forth between Kristen and my people. And the book that we ended up with, and it was all her, she did all the work, was pretty different than the book we started out with. And so it's just a matter of being honest and telling the author not necessarily what they want to hear, but what you believe to be true based on your years of experience and the expertise that you've developed over the years. Honesty is always the best policy.
Okay,
Kristen, am I remembering this?
So,
yeah, absolutely.
From your perspective, describe it.
So here's my side of it. I rocked back and forth in the corner and said, no, I won't do that. No, that's not true. No, so I wrote this very safe. I'm going to call it safe, and that's a very purposeful word, is just because it wasn't, as a police chief, I'm neutral, I don't, take any sides. And so my whole life has been just about neutrality and keeping, that centralization. And so then when Naren pushed back and said, what I'd like to see is a chapter on gun control, I said, are you fucking crazy? Like, I really? I mean, and this is in the height, well, it's still in the height of it. I mean, we're still there. And then I thought, okay, you know what? I'll give it a stab, and also, and I had been pretty outspoken about the murder of George Floyd, but I hadn't added it into the book. And so he said, maybe you should also talk about that, because that's what everyone's talking about. And so I drilled down, and what came especially out of that gun control chapter was breaking my heart open after having been through a mass shooting with my department, and where 5 people were killed. And it became this thing where, I decided to be brave and confront, really my own opinions about it based on my experiences. Not only that, but this is what I loved about, Amplify, is there's a team of people. So, I hand in, this piece of work, and they're saying, here's how it can be better, and they also knew, because this is their industry, they know so much. So I wrote very chronologically. It all started in a little town, and he's like, oh, no, we're taking your last chapter and we're making it your first chapter. And I was like, oh, it completely messed up all of my molecules. But again, they know best. So as, from the writer's perspective, you have to trust the people that you have employed to help you with this process. Now, here's what I also love. You also said, by the way, these are our suggestions. Take them or leave them. This is your body of work. And I loved that. So I felt so empowered, as it turns out, I did take all of the, the recommendations and implemented them. And it's a better book than it started out with because of that. So, and I never felt like he was telling me, it's garbage. It was just like, hey, here's where, you could really enhance the book. So, I was on the receiving end.
So I remember a conversation we had, Kristen, where I said, "Hey, who's this book for? If it's just for your family and friends, then you don't want to go there. But you can't put out a book into 21 or 22, whenever it was, without naming George Floyd and what happened, right? Nobody wants a book called Reimaging Blue in that time. Can't and take a position, whatever your position may be, right? It's not interesting unless you talk about it, and so." And by the way, let's talk about the process. It is a real process, and Kristen went through the process. And it's not great when you work on something by yourself and you turn it over, and somebody says, "Hey, what about this, this, and this? Go back to the drawing board." And so she would I was really proud of her. She went back to the drawing board on a couple occasions and put in the work. It's a lot of work. And so the result is a fantastic book that I'm super proud of. And I know that the readers are as well. They're really happy that you did put in the work, Kristen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Sil, I'm going to call you out because when we put things into the universe, and you've got some accountability there, but Sil is working on a book, and so, Sil, as a writer who's not quite finished the book, you've got the idea of it. It's coming out, and so, how then, Naren, does someone like Sil, once she gets to that point of done, walk us through? And of course, I know that this is what's asked of you all the time, but it's something that people don't understand. You have a traditional path to publishing, which is typically you send out your proposals, you try to find an agent, and it's a lot of rejection, or worse, worse than rejection. No one even gets back to you, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have your self-publishing, where right now, you could upload a book and be a published author on Amazon, by midnight tonight, right? So, talk to us about that journey, to people like Sil who are just in the beginning and trying to figure out, gosh, what's the best path for me?
Yeah. So first of all, this is a great time for content and for books. People that were suggesting that books would be gone by now, they have been proven wrong time and time again, right? So having said that, I am a huge fan of traditional publishing, the big houses. I'm a huge fan of self-publishing. More content is getting out there than ever before. And so that really makes me happy. And so, but you just should know the pros and cons of either pathway. And on the traditional publishing, you must find an agent, which is it's a task. You must put together a book proposal, and there's no slam dunk in terms of finding an agent, right? It's hard to find an agent if you don't have a huge platform and a track record of selling books. Now, if you've never written a book, how could you have a huge track record of selling books, right? Therein lies the problem. And even if you find an agent, then that agent pitches it to the large houses, and all that takes time. And if you can get that, if that's what's really near and dear to you, and you've always been dreaming of that, go for it. And I will guide you and tell you how to get there. But just understand that it is a process and it just takes a while. On the other hand, self-publishing is fantastic as long as you do what it takes to work with experts on things like editing, cover design. Don't take any shortcuts. And if you do all those things, I'm a big proponent of self-publishing. And so our little area of the industry is called hybrid publishing. And what that means is, we have a team of experts that's done the editorial, that's done the design, that's done the book packaging, that does distribution. We're experts at this. And I think we put together books that are on par or better than a lot of the books that come out of the New York houses. Reimaging Blue, I'm proud of that book. There's not a publisher in the world that could have done any better of a job, and I would argue that it's a beautiful book, and so as long as if you're going the self-publishing route, do all those things, you're on the right path. And in terms of hybrid, our model is simply that we're going to do all those things. You're going to pay service fees for all the things that we deliver, but in exchange, because you're invested in the project, you're going to get a higher royalty rate, way higher than you'd get in traditional publishing. But of course, traditional publishing doesn't ask the author to invest. So there's no right answer. There are options.
Right. And Kristen, what you did is remarkable. And how you found Naren is I just believe the universe conspires, right? Because you had not published before. I mean,
No.
Naren, I doubt that you had an author that had their naval postgraduate school thesis on a scarf, every word. And Kristen is a writer. She loves to write, and she gives fantastic content that's super real. Her voice is clear. But it is not a common thing to have someone that is a novice that connects with somebody like you in this hybrid space, does the work, grinds it out, is real, and then sells like a freaking champ. I mean, what do you say to that? Is it all of these qualities that she has, plus this fantastic personality? And I mean, what do you say to that?
Flattery will get you absolutely everywhere.
Oh, just
Well,
wait.
so first of all, she's got a fantastic voice because that mic is amazing. I mean, crystal clear.
It's girthy.
Amazing. Oh, no. Yes, crystal clear. So, you know what? Again, I go back to the process. She went through the process. She was committed. She wanted to put out quality work. And, if it took 2 months extra, 5 months extra, 6 months extra in our case, so be it. And sometimes people just get short-sighted. They don't go through the process.
Right.
There will be twists and turns. And if you're not willing to roll with it, you're going to put out a book that is not everything that it could be. And so process. That's what she did.
Yeah, so
Right.
I want to answer your question there as well. So because I also went a little bit unorthodox, and the universe really conspired in my favor. So I didn't submit my manuscript to you, and after I get done telling everyone how we found each other, I do want to give people the opportunity. No, it's actually it's amazing. But I do want to give people the opportunity to learn how to submit a manuscript and how that process is. So for me, I sat and I just wrote every day, and then I had 90,000 words. And that cesspool hellhole of a place called Twitter was actually the thing that took me to Naren. Follow the path here. I literally went on Twitter, as I often do, screaming into the abyss. And I wrote these words: I just finished a 90,000 word manuscript, and I have no idea what to do next. So then it was actually Chris Shung from Mountain View saw my tweet, and he was the chief of Mountain View at the time. And he said, "Hey man, I don't know anything about publishing, but I know an author. Do you want me to hook her up with you?" So that took me to his friend, Melissa Agnes, who is an author. And she graciously FaceTimed with me, and I said, "I don't know what to do." And she said, "Listen, this is where I went. I love my publisher." And then she gave me Naren's contact. She did, an introduction. So there's a couple things there to unwrap. Number one, man, you talk about asking for help and how the universe conspires to help you if you are vulnerable enough to say, "Please help me. I don't know what to do." And then someone did. Well, he didn't know what to do, but he was like, "Hey, I can guide you here." And then the rest of it is human connection, right? So, Melissa had a connection with you, and then you and I spoke via Zoom on a Friday, and you said, "Submit me your manuscript." And on Monday afternoon, he called me and said, "We're going to publish this." And I almost fell out of my chair. So it was just an unbelievable, it felt like luck, but really it was human connection. And that's kind of the theme that I've really found out, that is so important in life is human connection and, and the networking and all of that. So that's what conspired. So that was very unorthodox. So tell people then, if they're just sitting there, with all of these words, how do they submit something? Do they just do it cold? Is there a certain
Sure.
time you take manuscripts?
Sure. So let's back up. So for those that are, thinking about writing a book, have some ideas, I would urge them to put together what we call a simple one-page document. It's called, get this, the one-pager. And I'm happy to send you an example of one. Anyone listening that wants one, and it has 5 things. Okay, ready? Here we go. Number 1, a proposed title and subtitle. Number 2, 4 or 5 sentences about what the book is, what the book isn't, just a synopsis. Number 3, who's the author and why is the author qualified to write this book? So a little bio. Number 4, target market. That we keep coming back to target market. Who's going to give a shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then number 5, if you have any comparable titles, that really helps publishers understand the lane that you're just sort of trying to play in. So those 5 things, should I do a quick recap? Or should
Yes,
I
please.
quiz you?
Because we have title,
Okay.
4 to 5 sentences about the book. Who is the author, like a bio, target market, and I missed the 5th.
Comparable titles.
Comparable
You do
titles.
those things
Can I just
on
interject
one
here?
page.
Wait, this is like the person that, like, when everybody's in a group and everybody gets their phone out, like they take a picture and they're like, can you take one with my phone? Can you take one with my phone? And then you're like, that we could just text it to each other. Sylvia's right. I'm watching you write notes feverishly as though this isn't being recorded and you can't get them later. And I'm living for it. I just want you to know.
Hey, you never know. Well, Ted is public. Ted's our
like,
producer,
say that again.
so I'm a pencil and paper kind of gal, lady.
That's a legal pad.
She's
Wow.
got a yellow legal pen. And she's like, Naren, can you stop? Can you please repeat that as if it's not being recorded?
And a pencil.
This
is where we
even your dog back there is like, hey, what is happening here?
Yeah, he is.
I'm living for this.
That's so interesting. So you give... like, what are you drinking?
Tequila
She's
and
drinking.
grapefruit. Because it's 5:30 in Naples, Florida, so it's happy hour.
Oh,
as you were.
Okay, listeners. So, Naren, you give people that, and then you compel them to condense their body of work into this one pager, which is super rad. So it gives them kind of an understanding, and it gives you a quick hit, a nibble, as we call it in the Hollow Bunny biz, a nibble to kind of figure out, is this going to be tasty and solid, or is it going to be not really well kind of formed?
Yeah, and again, we're happy to take a look at it. We'll take a look at anybody's and give you some guidance and point you in the right way. And if it's a book that's truly only meant for your friends and family, I'll tell you it's meant for your friends and family. Put it up on Amazon, or go to Kinko's and make some copies,
Sure.
right? And if you've got commercial aspirations or professional aspirations, I'll tell you that too, and I'll tell you, we'll tell you what's required to take it from here to up here.
Yeah, and here's another thing. I'm going to take all our Hollow Bunny podcast listeners back to this thing that Kristen said a bit ago, and that was she reached out, she asked them, but she put it out to the universe like, hey, I don't know what to do. That is vulnerable. And if you recall, listeners, how Kristen and I met, the magic was sparked by her saying, she's cold emailed me. And I don't think whoever responded to your first call for action, your second call for action on your book, Kristen, used the word trousers like I did. But I think what it reveals is this: when you're willing to say, hey, I have no idea, I got this badass 90,000 words, but what do? People want to help, and the right people connect you with the right people, and look where you are, right? It's super cool.
I also want to point out something here that Naren, you've mentioned it several times, but it's actually to be on the other side of that when you say, we've got a process here, we have editors, and can I tell you how many times it's not for the faint of heart. If you are someone who is a very sensitive individual about your work and you get butthurt, if someone tells you, you can do better, then you may need to rethink this process, because I can't tell you how many times that, the editors, and they were so kind at first, they're like, you might want to think about this. And finally, I just said, here's the kind of person I am. I don't know what I don't know. I want this book not to suck. So if there's something that is boring, or if it just needs to be omitted, and that feedback for them was great, because then they got to know me. And then literally, like, I would get red lines. It was like, sucks. It was like boring, fell asleep during this. And I appreciated that, because that is how I take feedback. It's like, just don't beat around the bush. Don't say, like, I love Naren. I love how you're just like, well, maybe this is more for your family. No, I just want someone to go, oh God, this is a heaping pile of garbage. Set it on fire, walk away, go find something else, learn to juggle. I don't know, but that's just me. But my point, I'm, speaking in jest, but it was some very frustrating times where I was like, oh my gosh, I love that story, because that story was personal for me. But the people on the other end, who were going to be, of course, the people who were going to be opening the book for the first time, it didn't resonate with them. And I had to look at that with new eyes. And I also had to trust that. And as it turns out, when I go back and read those stories that were cut later, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such a good call. So I just bring that up to say it's not for the faint of heart.
Right. And what's so interesting about that is I took mine to a friend's house who's been published, and she read it. And she said the first story was so shocking and so tough that she said I was just like, and I had to put it down. And I thought, I didn't really take it that way. But this is what came out of it. Like, this is my challenge network. Look, it's on a piece of paper, Kristen. Do you know what paper is?
Piece of paper.
And a pencil. So, like,
paper.
your challenge network, you write down the Tunny, and you write down the Brenda, and the, your people that are going to challenge you. They're going to challenge the thing and not you as a person. And might that be one of the big lessons out of this conversation? You gave space to Naren and his team to challenge the content, to challenge the thing, but not challenge you in the way that they were degrading you. Challenging to amplify, challenging to lift you up, challenging to drive you forward to finish it. Yes. But challenging you, saying, that you suck is different than this sucks, right?
Yeah.
And so
it's never personal. It's never personal. Actually, after a certain time, when you do establish a relationship, and your listeners can tell by now, Kristen and I adore each other. And so it became personal. It became personal because I wanted her to have the best possible book.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and but I felt like I would be remiss to say that it's a grueling process. But here's the other thing, is that you have to trust the people who are in the industry. When Naren said, listen, we know what sells, we know how to sell books. I was like, okay, and I'm a little bratty and snarky, and then he even challenged me because, it's like, who's the book for? And I'm like, I don't know, Naren. I'm a cop. I'm a woman, I'm like all of these things. I'm like, I don't know who the book is for. And, and so it's like, then that challenged me to focus, and narrow my vision there. So there's just so much to it, but it's the right fit. I also think this is important in, Naren, maybe you can even speak to this, is that, you can interview, publishing companies, right? And you're interviewing them, as well, if people are reaching out. And so it's got to be the right fit. It's got to be a good relationship there, right? Talk about the relationship building, how that works.
Yeah. It goes both ways. It really does. Because you do spend a lot of time with people, and it's true. You want to work with people that you enjoy spending time with, and this is really on a personal topic that is near and dear to all of our authors. Many times it's life's work, and so sometimes they're super emotional about it, and some take feedback really well, and most take feedback really well, and some don't. And so it's just a really close relationship, something to consider.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So, Naren, I want to switch gears just a little bit. Oh, do you have another book story? Because I want to take him down another road. But go, Sil, let's talk.
Go down that other road, because I'm thinking about going down this road. I'm going to see if it's the same road there, Kristen.
Okay. Well, no, it's a beat change. No, this is...
There's a fork in the road right now. There's a fork in the road.
I am turning right here. I want to know, Naren, do you make your bed in the morning?
Oh, man. I'm one of those non-bed makers.
How have you succeeded
Sylvia
in
Moyer, we found another anomaly, a person who can succeed in life without making their bed. Whew, this
I
is
think a lot of
big.
people lie about that, by the way,
Oh,
that
this
they
is
make their
so big.
beds every
Ooh.
morning. I think a lot of people lie about that. I'm just
You're
saying.
you're so onto something. Okay, so wait, and then
Oh.
so you can take it away after this. Okay, so after Naren, you also introduced me to the speakers group called Impact 11. So I go and I hang out with all these speakers and I learn the business. I know nothing about it. I felt like an imposter. I get there, it's cool, but one of the guys who was there is one of your authors, Greg Scheinman, and he wrote the book Midlife Male, right? And
That's right.
he hadn't written the book. He and I were about the same place. This guy has exploded. He's the one, Sil, that before your Lieutenant Plunger, who taught me about I say he taught me, even though I just follow him. So his audience are he just turned 50 and they're men, and yet I hang on his every word. So I don't know why he just doesn't expand his market, because you don't have to have a penis to get stuff out of that. But anyway, this is why I bring it up, because me and Sil and producer Ted are now obsessed with morning routines and cold plunging. And so a lot of that came from Greg's midlife male work. And so my question to you is, do you do any of that morning routine stuff, or are you just like, I'm not making my bed, maybe I'll have some coffee and I'm just, going to go slay the day?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't make my bed every day. So in a sense, that is a routine, right? Am I right? That's a routine.
That's
right.
right. A
Making your bed.
non-routine is a routine. That's right. Oh,
Right.
whoa. Look how he just flipped that on us, Sil. I have to marinate in that for a minute.
So yes, I'm a routine type of guy. I don't make my bed every day.
Huh.
Number two, I'm a coffee guy. Coffee is very important to me. But I don't eat breakfast. So I break all of Greg Scheinman's rules, I think.
Yeah.
And then I go and I work, and then I try to get out at a reasonable hour, except for today because I got this amazing podcast to do. And then I will do a little exercise. That's my day. Boring? Maybe.
No, see, it
No,
works.
not
That's what
boring.
that's what we're trying to unwrap is what's, because Stella and I are very routine oriented. I mean, we're talking label everything. We are the make your bed people. We are just we are in lockstep when it comes to that. And when we meet people that aren't Still, especially, is just how do you function in life if you don't make your bed? And I think it's so funny that everyone is defying this hypothesis of yours.
Does it depend on how many pillows you have? I mean, are you one of those that has 50 pillows?
50.
I do love a decorative
4,
pillow.
6, 8. I don't know. Decorative pillow. Ladies like pillows. There's a gender thing there. So, Naren, I'm super interested in this space around AI and how you distinguish an author's voice from some AI voice, and kind of where you see that going, because, infringement on copyright, infringement on intellectual property. There's all this stuff going around. So you're obviously a bright legal mind, a lawyer. And so lawyer, publisher, dad, ethical human being, how do you kind of reconcile all of this?
Yeah, so AI is a thing. It is a thing and an issue in the world of books. But my take is this, you should or you can use AI as a tool, but at least today, AI, as I see it and as I understand it, will never replace an author. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. It's because, sure, they can recite a topic at Wikipedia levels, but what it cannot do is repeat, for example, Kristen's experiences, her thoughts way back when, as she's going through an experience, case studies. So it's not quite there. I'm not saying it's never going to be there, but as of today, it will not. My view is it hasn't replaced an author, but there are some tools that authors use, AI related, in terms of getting research or proofreading. There are places for AI, but never the original content generation That's my view.
Right.
I mean, what you just said here, and also voice, right? So not only your experiences, but I know that, and I never knew this until after I wrote the book, but when people talk to me, they say this, they say, you talk just like you write. You know, I read your book and it was like, and then I met you or I was on a podcast and they're like, that's incredible. So I don't think we can underestimate the power of like your individual voice, each one of our individual voices. And so words can happen very easily via AI, but man, but experiences and just, we all have our own individual voice that is unique to us. And I don't know that you could ever replicate that. Hopefully not.
Well, they call it human connection for a reason, right? Human connection, right? But speaking of voice, Kristen, I know you and I were talking when you were doing your audiobook. Now you can give an audio sample and have AI spit out your book entirely. And I've listened to one of these books from somebody that I know, and it's about 80% there. There's just like, if you know somebody, you'll know it's a little off. Like I would know your voice isn't your voice, but if I didn't know you, you could not tell the difference.
That's crazy.
How about that?
That is super crazy. So it's when Kristen said that they read the book and then they meet her and it's the same kind of tone and word choice. Kristen, if you can master that you actually smell like a new book, then I'll believe the human connection. Is your tattoo, is it scratch and sniff of the books?
No, it
The one on
should
your
be
arm?
though. It should. The pile of books. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something
and I hope,
magical
man,
about the smell of a book.
There is. And that's why, Naren, I love that this is a great place to kind of bring it full circle. I love that you said that there are so many books in production. And because I know that everyone with the newspaper, you know, circling the drain, and, you know, it's just like, there is nothing that beats holding a book, smelling a book, especially one you got from the library. And my favorite is to get a book that's already highlighted by someone else, because you can get inside their head. And there's no substitution for it. So to hear you say that book publishing is alive and well just makes my heart explode. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, the predictions of the demise of the physical book were greatly exaggerated. It didn't happen. Not only did it not happen, physical book sales increased like by 10 or 15% over the last 3 or 4 years. Physical book sales. Ebook sales flatlined, which makes me super happy. And audiobook sales have increased a little bit. But the headline here is physical book sales are thriving.
That's awesome, Naren. I mean, we've learned a lot here. And I guess I'd ask, you know, as we kind of reach the end of your incredibly valuable time, what fills your bunny?
Wow, what fills my bunny? So, well, I think, you know, there's a lot of, let's talk a little bit about leadership, because I know that you all talk about leadership. And I think that there's two ways to lead. It's by example, and it's by words and being, you know, out there, rah rah type. And I've had a lot of people tell me that one of the things that I'm good at, I don't know if it's true, is I lead by example. And so what really fills my bunny is when hopefully I've imparted that to my employees and they use it when they are working with their authors, is to really lead by example, be passionate, have a work ethic, do a good job. So when I see that in my people that I've worked with and trained for a long time, it fills my bunny.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And Naren,
And,
I would
and
add
I
something
learned
else.
that I learned I don't have to write down notes
In the middle of a
shit's
podcast?
recorded.
Yeah, because it's
I
recorded.
like it. I
Due
like
to
the
modern
journey of
technology.
writing it.
Yeah, modern
yeah,
technology
yeah.
will allow you to go
Okay.
back and revisit it. I want to add one
Oh,
more
smart
thing,
ass.
if I may fill your bunny, also, Naren, is
Yes,
that
please.
there also, and I love that, you know, leading by example, but you do have a remarkable way of connecting with people. And, you know, coming from, you know, a brand new author who was terrified at the process, you know, well, first of all, let me even tell you, our listeners, what happened after I signed the contract. And, you know, and Naren said, I'm going to publish your book. You know, we had never met. And, you know, I was in Naples and his daughter happened to be here. You know, she was horse riding, right? Somewhere around here.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And so he said, "Hey, let's meet." I was like, "Oh, okay." So we met in Naples and, toasted, over some champagne, talked about the process, and you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to go out of your way. I was terrified. I didn't know what to expect. The process hadn't even begun yet. It was just, here's the manuscript. And so it was, the beginning of a long journey, but you made me feel very safe. And also there were a few times that I called you after the book was published because I don't know if you remember this, but someone took my title of my book and posted it on Amazon and like basically stole it and did like cliff notes. And I was like, what the shit? How is this possible? And even a couple shitty reviews. And you said, congratulations, you are now an author. A bad review is something that, basically it's a badge of honor. And so it's like just through the whole process. And that just gives you the beginning and the end of, he didn't, after I signed the contract and after the book, he didn't just abandon, me as an author. And so I know that he does that, even though I am his favorite, but I know that he does that for everyone. So if I may, that's what leadership is too, is, making yourself available, and, not just after you've signed the contract, you just didn't disappear. So take that from me as a person who has loved working with you. And if anybody wants to find a place to land their manuscript, check out Amplify. And Naren, anywhere else we can find you for connection?
Let's see. Yeah, website is good. amplifypublishinggroup.com. I'm active on LinkedIn primarily. Every once in a while I'll post something on Instagram, but LinkedIn is where I do my best work or my worst work, depending on your perspective.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We very much appreciate it. So I just want to let everyone know that Ted Madden produces this podcast, and the song that you are about to hear was written and performed exclusively for the podcast by my handsome and talented son, Jake, and his friends, Fabian and Zoe. If you like our podcast, please subscribe. Punch the shit out of that subscribe button, people. Like it, review it, tell everyone you know about it. If you don't like it, what do you know about podcasts? Also, we are now on social media because we have over 1 million listeners. That's a lie, but we're getting close. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, on X. So find us. And please, listeners, keep filling your own buddies and continue to add substance to others. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Naren. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you lost your why? Have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny. When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and you're scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all. And I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger. Failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're outside but empty within. Something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. And we all tough on the outside but empty within. Something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. The hollow monster